Teddy Covers is red hot, cashing 67% of his plays since the beginning of August. Get 3 days of Teddy Covers selections for only $29, discounted from $69 using coupon code TEDDY3 when checking out. That's less than $10 per day and includes any 5% big ticket releases, normally priced at $35 just by themselves. As an added bonus, anyone who purchases before Friday at midnight will get $10 in wager bucks, good toward a future Teddy Covers purchase credited to your account.
All right, guys, happy Friday. Welcome into another edition of College Football Daily, powered by WagerTalk.com. We got a few games that we have not touched base on yet this week, but we are going to cover them today, including Colorado, Minnesota, Notre Dame, Purdue. We've got Washington State taking on USC, and we'll end with a night game there, North Carolina at Virginia, and we'll do it with all three of the finest gentlemen at WagerTalk.com. They're pretty good handicappers, too, as well. Tony Mejia is in the house. Steve Merril here. And, of course, Dave Cokin joining us here. And, Tony Mejia, my friend, happy Friday to you. I know you're running around in a million different directions here. Great stuff at the Gold Sheet. But what do you got locked and loaded ready for us here at WagerTalk.com?
I've got a 4% play on a Friday night game tonight. I'm still waiting word on whether UCF Center is going to start tonight to pull the trigger on UCF Louisville, but I've got a play in on the Illinois game against, they're hosting, I forget who now. So got that going. And then tomorrow is a full card. Sunday's obviously a full card. Went 5-0 on my 4% plays in the NFL. So hopefully can build off of that and continue a strong start on the gridiron.
Can you remember Tua's little brother? Playing Maryland, man.
Maryland,
What's going on, dude? There you go. And you actually picked Maryland.
Yes, I know what side you got on.
Yeah, I was exactly.
What's the total?
Steve Merril, my friend, happy Friday to you. I know you always your public video, huge hit over the weekend there at WagerTalk.com. What else you got going on heading into Saturday, Sunday?
Yeah, the Fade the Public NFL video will be up this Saturday, this weekend. I'm going to do it here this evening on Friday, get the latest information and knock that out. I do have my top 25 college football preview up there right now on Wager Talk TV. That's my power ratings and predictions for the three biggest games of the week. And we're not touching those three here on the show today, so get that at Wager Talk TV. And then, of course, my best bets will be available this weekend, Saturday and Sunday, on my page, Steve Merril, WagerTalk.com. And use promo code Merril79 for a full 7 days of football and baseball for just $79. Merril79, 2 R's, 1 L. Merril79 gets you a full week all access for just $79. That special promo code.
Awesome. Great stuff there. And Dave Cokin here on a Friday, guys. Just let me give you the numbers once again here. 22-6 on all 5% plays, guys, since 2020. We're talking about 12-1 in college football and 5% plays. Since 2019, he already had a 5% winner in the NFL in week one with the Browns. And, oh, yeah, by the way, his very first college football 5% play available now at WagerTalk.com. What's going on, Dave? What else you got cooking for us this weekend?
College card's going to consist of 4 games, including the 5% play. NFL card will consist of 3 Sunday games, and I posted a free play on the Cowboys-Chargers game. You can view that on my Twitter page at Dave Cokin, or just go to my homepage at WagerTalk, which is wt.buzz/DC. And that's about it. The game that just missed the card is one of the ones we're talking about on the show today. So hopefully a little positive insight on that game.
Awesome. All right. I love it. And if you missed the shows earlier this week, guys, we'll do a mini recap here at the end of this show just to get you caught up. But in the meantime, let's kick it off here with a Minnesota-Colorado battle at 1 o'clock Eastern time. Minnesota opens up as a 2.5-point dog here to total 50.5. And I'll go to you, Tony Mejia, to start, my friend. Give me your thoughts about these two teams heading into this matchup.
Well, Colorado made a good account of itself against Texas A&M last week. They really clamped down defensively, but a lot of that was that A&M backup Zach Calzada had to play the bulk of the game. He's not a very good passer, A&M finally outlasted them in the fourth quarter to avoid an upset. Minnesota came off the Ohio State loss and looked pretty good. Unfortunately, they lost Muhammad Ibrahim, their star running back, in that loss to the Buckeyes, but they replaced him with Trayson Potts, who ran for 178 yards and 2 touchdowns against Miami of Ohio last week. Big deal for this one is whether Chris Altman-Bell, the wide receiver, plays. He participated in warm-ups last week, and they held him out. Likely back from a leg injury that almost ended his season. That was the fear in the preseason. They might get safety Jordan Howden too, but nobody knows what Minnesota is going to pull out because they don't release a depth chart. And I guess Colorado did offense to that because they released their depth chart, and Fred Flintstone is the starting center. Paul Crew is the starting quarterback, which might be an upgrade on what they have right now. You can check out the whole Too Deep. It's hilarious. It's on my Twitter feed at Mejia Dinero. They've got at Beatle back, Paul McCartney back by Ringo Starr. So they had a little fun with that. But we'll see. We'll see what they do. Buffaloes have allowed the 13th fewest rushing yards in the nation this season. And, they play decent competition. And that's what Minnesota wants to do. Tanner Morgan has been really inconsistent. He's struggled with his accuracy. He's completed just 52.4% of his passes. And if Morgan can't get the passing going with Altman-Bell, then I think we're in for a very low-scoring game. That's where my lean is on this contest, is to ride the under.
All right, riding the under. It's interesting, Steve. Both of these two teams have a little something in common, right? They're both 1-1. They both lost to a top 5 team there, and they both had an opportunity to win the game here. So what do you think we're going to see here? How close is this matchup?
And the other thing in common, Joe, is neither one has played a true road game this season, and this will be the first true road game for Minnesota. And they have a unique home field advantage, so I think that definitely favors Colorado a little bit. Minnesota's weaker on the road normally, and we have a little bit of an altitude edge. That sometimes comes into play in the second half, the fatigue factor. And my power ratings favor Colorado by 4.5 in this game. The line is currently 2.5 across the board. About 10% of the time, favorites of a field goal are going to win by exactly 3. So that half point is pretty big here. And I think the line's a couple points low to start with. So I do side towards Colorado here. Colorado's an interesting team. Second year under their head coach. Last year was probably the worst year in recent history to be a new head coach because you had no preseason, really limited practice, if any, in August and September. Yet Colorado came out with a 4-0 start last year and then lost their final 2 games. They've gone 1-1 this year. Obviously, a respectable loss last week. 17-point dog, and they only lose 10-7. So that's basically a win in my book for Colorado. Meanwhile, Minnesota did not look great against Miami of Ohio. Maybe it was a hangover after the Ohio State game, the back-and-forth high-scoring Thursday night game to open the season. Keep in mind, Minnesota last year defensively very challenged. They gave up over 200 yards rushing and passing per game, gave up over 6 yards per carry. On the season now, they're giving up 5.5 yards per carry. So this Colorado team that has rushed for 226 yards, 5.2 yards per rush in the first 2 games, I think it's going to have a substantial edge on the line of scrimmage. So we're getting a good rushing attack at home, laying just 2.5 points. The line is too low. I like Colorado in this one.
I like Colorado. I'm sorry, not Blaine Gabbert. Dave, talk to me here. We got 2 teams that are obviously going to rely. They like to run the ball. Something's got to give here. Who do you like in this matchup?
Well, this is kind of my least favorite week of the college football season. Part of the reason for that is there's a bunch of non-conference games, and the real season begins for a lot of these teams next week when they get into conference play and the real rivalry games. I think this is a really tough game. But just on the numbers, and I made a couple of adjustments yesterday in doing my final run-through. I have Minnesota as the slightly better team. And I think you can justify that simply by the Colorado offense. It's terrible. They weren't any good last year either. I remember when Colorado was 4-0 last year, and I think I bet against them at that point and won. I don't remember the game, but it was like this team was one of the phoniest 4-0 teams I've ever seen. And they just weren't very good. Mm-hmm. They had a safety playing quarterback, and things haven't improved for them offensively. They did give a good account of themselves defensively last week against Texas A&M. I mean, that was a really good performance. But I'm not sure they're up to that again. And listen, the problem is Minnesota is a team you can exploit defensively. They're not very good on defense. But Colorado doesn't seem to have the weapons to do that. So I don't know that Colorado could take advantage of their best opportunity in this game. I think Minnesota's a little better football team. I don't think I'm going to play it because it's kind of a meh game, but I would lean Minnesota just on the strength of my numbers. I think the game is basically a pick 'em, and when in doubt, always go with the numbers. So I'll give a lean to the Gophers, although I don't think I'll end up playing the game. It just looks like it's too close to call. So a mistake either way is what's going to decide this game. And that's about it. Lean to Minnesota.
All right, lean to Minnesota there. It is a very, very tough game there, guys. And this next one, too, also going to be pretty tough for these two teams involved as Notre Dame, South Bend taking on Purdue. Open up as an 8-point favorite there. The total 59 points there as an open, 2:30 Eastern time on Saturday. And Steve, my question to you is that's two back-to-back nail-biters to start the season here for Notre Dame. What do you think we're going to get for them going up against this 2-0 Purdue team?
Well, I do think the line's a little bit short because of those nail-biters. My power ratings favor Notre Dame by a little bit more than 10 points in this one. As you said, the line currently around that 7.5 range. Obviously, once again, we talk about those key numbers in football. Other than 3, 7 is the second most key number. This is 7.5 across the board right now. So if it was to drop to 7 or less by kickoff on Saturday, I would lean towards the Irish based on line value. A very young team coming in. This year, almost every school by default has 17, 18, 19 returning starters. So when Notre Dame had just 3 and 6 on each side of the ball, 9 returning starters, that's very low for this season. They have gotten off to the 2-0 straight up, but 0-2 spread start, as you mentioned. I think some of that is due to their youth. Keep in mind, Florida State, back and forth game. They had the big lead. They blew it, went to overtime. They barely won by a field goal in that standalone Sunday night game a couple weekends ago. And then they had to come back on the short week and then play last Saturday on just 5 days prep time and play a good Toledo team. Toledo's maybe the class of the MAC this year, so I'm not going to discount them too much for winning only 32-29. So two tough opponents to start the season. Purdue is also a good team. But they haven't really played. This is a step up in class for them. Connecticut 49-0 last week. UConn is awful. This is a UConn team that's barely averaging over 3 yards per pass, not per play, per pass this season. They didn't play last year. So I think this is a real big step up in class for Purdue, and I do think we get a little bit of line value, as you said, based on those lackluster close wins so far by Notre Dame.
All right, good stuff. And Dave, we just talked about a couple of teams where the quarterbacks what do you think about the two quarterbacks going head-to-head in this matchup here?
Well, I like Plummer, and Cohen looks great for Notre Dame. He's been very impressive so far. I'm not sold on Purdue. I know they're getting a lot of attention this week. The market seems to like them. It's a public dog. Look, they beat Oregon State. They didn't exactly crush them, and the Beavers are a very ordinary football team. And the Connecticut game, that's a practice, okay? You take nothing out of that game because Connecticut is probably the worst team in the FBS. So Purdue is stepping way up here in competition, and I don't know that they're good enough to hang with Notre Dame. The Irish had a big lead against Florida State. They went into that stupid soft zone in the fourth quarter, up 18. I just don't know why, after all these years, coaches still do that same dumb shit and let teams back in the game. If what you've been doing for 50 minutes is working, then why would you stop doing it? Make the other team figure out a way to beat you. Instead, they basically let Florida State say, here you go. Go ahead, go down the field. We're not going to resist at all. We're just going to play the soft zone and give you 8 and 10-yard chunks so we can chew up some clock. And guess what? That game ended up in overtime. And if Florida State doesn't miss the field goal, who knows? Notre Dame might have lost the football game. So anyway, that aside, that was a pretty good win for them. But it was still a crazy game, standalone, Sunday night. And then they go home to face Toledo. I'm sorry, they just weren't fired up. Toledo's a pretty respectable team. And they weren't really prepared for that game. They managed to pull it out. You can make a case Toledo's not arguably maybe a point or two worse than Purdue. That's about all. So I don't think Notre Dame's going to have a problem being ready for this football game. I'm with Steve. This line actually did drop to 7 yesterday for a bit and has gone back up. If it gets back to 7, I think I'm going to go ahead and pull the trigger on the Irish. I made the number 10, so there is some value there. And I'm not big on the pros Joe's stuff, except when it's a public dog in college. That I have a tendency to look at because the public perception is just not great when they're on underdogs. They don't really do well. And Purdue is clearly a public underdog this week. So I'm going to lean with Notre Dame and possibly, not likely, because I don't think the number is going to get back to 7. But if it does, I think I'll probably take a flyer on Notre Dame for a small play.
All right, there you go, guys. And what do you think there, Tony Mejia, with these two quarterbacks, these two offenses? Are we looking at some points here?
Yeah, I mean, I think we might be. There's concerns on both sides injury-wise. But speaking of stupidity, to piggyback off of Dave's point about teams doing stupid things at the ends of games, Notre Dame basically let Toledo score with 1:40 to go last week because the Rockets were heading down the field for a game-winning field goal. Toledo let them get a pitch out and a wide. Nobody touched the running back who scored a touchdown for the Rockets. If he goes down, gives himself up about the 5-yard line. Notre Dame's out of timeouts. They can milk the clock. Instead, they gave them 1:40 to go right down the field, which you knew Notre Dame was going to do, and that's why Notre Dame is 2-0 instead of 1-1. So, the Irish come in, and yeah, I mean, I agree that was a flat performance by Notre Dame, but Toledo took it right to them defensively. Now you're looking at a Notre Dame defense that's giving up an average of, 440 yards per game, something like that. It really hasn't, 400 per game, just slightly below against the Florida State offense that didn't look good against Jacksonville State last week and played two quarterbacks, one of them which can't throw in week 1, and Toledo, a MAC offense in week 2. So, Plummer should be able to take advantage. A tough break for Purdue is that they did lose their top running back, Xander Horvath, into this one. But Notre Dame also has offensive line issues. They may be back, maybe down to their third string left tackle, which would be interesting to see them because then I think Purdue has a chance to stop them defensively. Again, in line with the Notre Dame did not respect Toledo last week storyline. There were about 15,000 empty seats in South Bend. This one's going to be a sellout. So certainly with an in-state rivalry, I think Notre Dame Stadium is going to be hyped. The line's about right to me. I mean, I think my number when I opened it was about 9. But I can understand the public getting behind Purdue because Notre Dame never covers, it seems. And again, they have issues on this thing. If Zeke Corral is the left tackle, then I think they have a world of hurt. He was 3rd on the depth chart. Jack Cohen's thrown for 341 yards through the air in both games, so he's lighting it up. 69.1% completion percentage, and I don't think he can play better than he has. He's targeted Mayer a third of the time. If Purdue can get a handle on him, they can certainly make this game interesting. I'm going to stay away from both sides of this, side and total, but I could see Purdue playing them tough.
All right, there you go, guys. We're going to move on to the post-Clay Helton era. USC taking on Washington State, heading to Pullman, Washington. This opened up USC 9.5, and that has come down here as we're seeing 7.5, 61.5 for a total, somewhere in or around there. This is going to be 3:30 Eastern time kickoff here. What do you do in a situation like this, Dave? I think everyone wants to fade USC because no more Clay Helton, but in reality, might you want to take a look at USC in this matchup?
So here's what I don't understand. If the general perception, and I happen to agree with the general perception, is that Clay Helton's been a bad football coach, and you're wondering how he kept the job this long. Why would you be betting against USC now that he's gone? Isn't that an upgrade? So I don't really understand the action on Wazoo. And by the way, I'm not all that big on Rolovich. And if you've been backing Rolovich against the spread since he took over at Hawaii, you've lost a lot of money. Okay, he's been a really bad point spread coach. I don't think he's got much at Washington State. I actually think that because of some, I'm not going to get into the politics of it all, but let's just say that he might not be in the best place for his viewpoints, and he could be on the hot seat at the end of the year. I'm not arguing for or against what he says. I don't really give a shit. Okay, I don't care. But when coaches go out there with stuff, there's going to be reaction. It's 2021, so we'll see if that gets the seat a little bit hot for Rolovich. I don't know what to make of USC. I'm not there. I don't know what the reaction is. I mean, the players have been saying all the typical things, which they say after a coach gets let go. I don't know whether I believe it or not. And I don't know what their focus level is going to be, because all the buzz right now is about who's going to be next at USC. Well, one of the guys who's in the mix is the interim coach. I mean, if the team goes wild and wins the rest of their games, guess what? Eric Bieniemy and Fickle and Stoops and all the rest might not have an opportunity. I mean, it's possible. I don't think it's likely, but it's possible. USC is a way more talented team. I made them 10. So value here, probably a little bit on the Trojans. I'm not going to bet it because I really do need to see what the team's concentration level is. But if the right USC team shows up, they can handle Wazoo.
Yeah, no, I agree with you there. And Tony Mejia, as far as the quarterback play goes here, we still a little iffy on who's going to be playing for Washington State. We know Slovis for USC. Who do you trust more here?
Oh,
well, it's Slovis and Jaden Delora, because Jared Garantano got injured, and Delora is really taking that job, and I don't think he's going to give it back unless he's terrible against the Trojans, which he was last year. But last year he was coming off of COVID. That was the excuse, at least. And they threw back-to-back interceptions, and they were out of the game very early. But now, I mean, he comes off a week against Portland State, take that for what you will, where he went 33 of, something completing like 70% of his passes, 303 yards, 3 touchdowns. Pro Football Focus gave his grade over 90, the third highest of all FBS quarterbacks last week. So he's coming in hot. But, Slovis hasn't played well. He has a hand to play in the Trojans' demise against Stanford. But, the fact is we called it beforehand. If USC loses to Stanford, it's because they're not ready to play. They gave up a long touchdown run immediately to a team that barely ran for 30 yards against Kansas State the week prior. Dante Williams takes over. He's a cornerbacks coach. I'm not sure that he's going to keep the job even if they run the table, because he's basically going to make the decisions on whether to go for it and this and that. But it's really Graham Harrell's show on offense, Todd Orlando's show on defense, and I don't think that's going to change. And it's on Slovis to take advantage of a secondary that is vulnerable. Washington State, they lost to Utah State in week 1. They played Portland State last week. They haven't seen a team with the receivers like the Trojans. And, it's a Cougar secondary that was vulnerable last season. They got one returning starter, and he got injured in last week's game and left with his arm in a sling. So they don't know if he's going to be available here. Michigan State transfer Chris Jackson, who they were high on, hasn't played yet. So their safeties are vulnerable. This is a game where Slovis needs to put his foot down and really get USC a win. I would side with USC laying the points in this contest. But obviously, what they did to me last week, I don't think I can trust them.
Listen, you called it. You said if Helton screws this up, he's gone. And, yep, he's gone there. And, Steve, what do you think? It's an interesting market movement since the announcement of Clay Helton here. What do you think we're looking at?
Yeah, do you think there's ever been a time in the history of college football a guy got fired after going 6-1 in the previous season and a half before a loss? He was 5-1 last year. He won the opener. In fact, we had a strong best bet, my clients and myself, in week 1 against San Jose State. I had USC as a strong best bet in week 1, easy cover. Stayed off the game last week. I didn't think they were going to lose outright, obviously, but I stayed off of it. But I like Dave's point. If he's a bad coach, isn't this an upgrade? I think that's great logic. And I also think the players have to realize they got him fired last week. They lost that game. That is why he got fired. So I think they liked Helton And if that's the case, you can say, well, they're going to be disappointed their man's gone. But they also are going to look at it that, look, we just cost this guy his job. So I think it's a motivator for him. My power ratings make the line 7.5. As you mentioned, Joe, it opened 9. It's now exactly 7.5. So there's no line value in this game, but I do think the situational setup favors USC. And going to steal a great stat from our man, Mark Lawrence, our friend and pal, Mark Lawrence. Dave mentioned how Washington State second-year coach Nick Rovelich is questionable. The projected score in this game is 35-27, based on the point spread and the total being 62. So Washington State projected to get 27. According to Mark Lawrence, Washington State Nick Rovelich as a head coach is now 4-24 straight up and 3-25 against the spread when his team scores fewer than 28 points, which is what should happen this week. So, maybe the wrong coach was fired, right? And it's only his second year, but he might be in the hot seat as well.
Are you calling him Mejia right now? Washington State loses. That's out. You did great with USC and Helton, so that's for sure.
He's the highest paid employee in the state, and people are giving him shit about not wearing a mask and not being vaccinated. So who knows? They get embarrassed by an interim coach with no coaching experience whatsoever. They lose by 21. Stranger things have happened.
But just to weigh in on this, you gotta pick your spots to take your stances. I mean, I don't know what Pullman is like exactly. But Washington, we do know what the state of Washington has a clear lean as far as what color. It's kind of a blue. So you got to probably piss off some boosters. Just keep I don't know why. Just keep your comments to yourself. It's kind of like in my business, in our business. I've got my political leanings, but I've kind of learned to keep most of them fairly quiet because I'd rather not irritate some customers and have them say, well, the hell with him, I'll buy from somebody else. So
right.
Besides which, who gives a crap rat's ass what I think? No, really.
You're right. Yep. There are hills worth dying on. That is not one of them in Washington. So it's just pick your spots here, my friend. This is going to be an interesting spot here, guys. We're going to look at, I believe it is 120. This will be the 126th meeting known as the South's oldest rivalry. Virginia taking on UNC. UNC opens up as a 9-point favorite here. The total is 65. This is going to be 7:30 Eastern time. And Tony Mejia, I'll go to you. I thought it was interesting. Mac Brown said during the week, I don't get it. Why are people not giving Virginia enough credit? He doesn't think they're getting enough credit here. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm on the Virginia bandwagon. And Virginia's, he should say that because he hasn't beaten Bronco Mendenhall. Virginia's beaten Carolina 4 straight years. So, and Sam Howell hasn't beaten them either, despite the fact that he's thrown for nearly 800 yards and 8 touchdowns over 2 games because Virginia has lit up the Carolina defense. And this is with, pros. Like everybody went pro on that North Carolina offense last year, the skill positions besides Sam Howell, who stuck around. So, North Carolina did what they were supposed to do last week against Georgia State. Looked like they got their offense on track. But doing it against Virginia, they can do that, but can they get stops? The one X factor for me is the Virginia quarterback. Brennan Armstrong, you could see that he got injured last week in lighting up Illinois, but he stayed in the game. He was limping around, just firing off completions, but he finished the game with a brace. They said no news is good news, so apparently he's good to go this week. That's good enough for me. I think Virginia's a live dog in this game. I would sprinkle some money on the money line. North Carolina is clearly not as effective offensively, losing De'Ami Brown, who we saw last night with the Washington football team. Both running backs, Michael Carter and Javonte Williams, who are getting time right now with the Jets and the Broncos, respectively. Das Newsome is on somebody's practice squad, I believe. So those are all key guys, and North Carolina's done a decent job trying to replace them, but it's just not as effective an offense. I think Virginia at the skill positions is probably better at wide receiver and equally as effective at running back, and that's only because I like Ty Chandler, the Tennessee transfer who's now at UNC. So if Armstrong can be productive and they can light up the North Carolina secondary, which hasn't been done because Virginia Tech really didn't have to do that. They clamped down defensively to pull that upset and Georgia State couldn't because they're not equipped to do so. So this is the first real offense that that North Carolina will have faced. It's at home. It's going to be nice weather. My big play on this and my best bet for later is the over, but I would not be surprised if Virginia wins outright. So I'm obviously on Virginia covering the spread too.
It's a hell of a battle here, Steve. Virginia looking for their first road win against a top 25 opponent. They haven't done it since 2011. But boy, oh boy, have they had some success here against this North Carolina team. What do you think we're going to get?
Well, that's a good point. It is a revenge game from last season, of course. It was a high-scoring game. Last year, they beat them 44-41 as a 7.5-point home dog. So this is a revenge spot for North Carolina, as it's a huge rivalry, as you mentioned. I actually did not realize this was the oldest rivalry in the South. I thought Richmond and William and Mary was because they started in 1898, 131 meetings, but this one started in 1892 with 125 meetings. So they have played. It is a legitimate rivalry and revenge game for that reason. And North Carolina obviously got off to the slow start this year. They played another Virginia school, Virginia Tech, on that opening Thursday night a few weeks ago. Lost 17-10 as a 5.5-point road favorite. I liked Virginia Tech in that game. I think the Hokies are underrated this season. I don't read too much into that loss. It was a good bounce back last week for North Carolina. I know it was Georgia State, but Georgia State, I think, is a decent Sun Belt team. I know they got blown out by Army. Now they've been blown out by North Carolina, so maybe that's not true. But coming in, I had them rated as a decent Sun Belt team. And to put up 59 on over 600 yards is still solid. That means that offense is still able to click. And I'm not sold on Virginia. I know they've put up 85 points in their first two games, but speaking of William and Mary, I watched that game closely back in week one. The game was 3-0 early second quarter. Virginia struggled to move the ball offensively in the first half. They basically just wore down an FCS team, as those big boys often do, and then just kind of piled it on in the second half. Yes, the win against Illinois last week was impressive, but now it's their first road game, and we get line value. My power ratings actually favor UNC by 12 in this game. So I just think the line's a little bit short based on recent results here to start the season. I'll take the value with North Carolina. I would agree with Tony Mejia, though. I do think it'll be a high-scoring game. This Carolina offense looks potent once again. But I do think the defense, which returns 10 starters, might be a little bit better than people realize, holding two teams to 17 points in each game so far.
It's interesting, David. We got another game here that we've been talking about where it appears the underdog getting a little love in the marketplace here. What do you think we're going to get?
Well, I did know it was the oldest rivalry going back to 1892 because I
don't say it.
I had a bad beat in that game.
You were not there yet.
Right side, on the right side, wrong result. Actually, I did bet this game last year, and I lost it. I had North Carolina last year, and it was the wrong side. They got out-schemed. Bronco out-schemed Mac Brown in that game. And despite the fact that North Carolina had, I thought, some pretty big positional edges, Virginia found a way to win the game. They're closer this year. Armstrong has looked better than I thought he would. Now, granted, there's a caveat there because it was against William and Mary and a very slow-footed Illinois team. He's going to face a better defense this week. North Carolina's defense is better than it was a year ago. The problem is, the one worry I had about North Carolina coming into this season was could they replace, no worries at quarterback, and really no worries on the offensive line, which I thought was strong. But I remember talking about this when we did the ACC preview. I don't know about their wide receivers, how long it's going to take them to step up, and whether they've got the burners on the outside that they had last year. And the early returns suggest that they don't. So I don't know if my power rating, where I had North Carolina, is accurate or not. Now, I have them 9 in this game, but I've got misgivings about that. I'm going to watch and see how this plays out. I can't really give you a good opinion on this, on the side or the total. I think Bronco, quite frankly, is a better game coach than Mac Brown. And if I had to bet the game, I think I'd probably, no, I don't even want to say it. I'd probably take Virginia because I hate that. The thing is, I don't have to bet the game.
Yep.
And there's no chance I'm going to. So it's a pass for me. Okay.
Passing on it. It's going to be a hell of a game to watch, though. Should be a lot of fun there. And that's 7:30 Eastern time, guys. North Carolina taking on Virginia. All right, before we go around the room, see which one of these 4 games the guys like a little bit more than the others. It was an interesting set of games here where a lot of underdogs in the marketplace seem to be getting some love. So we took a poll question for you guys yesterday, and you chimed in. And you guys, we asked you which one of the dogs here on the games today that we covered, which one did you guys think has the best shot at covering? And there it is. We said Purdue, Virginia, Washington State, Minnesota, and it was close because I do believe that the Minnesota 34%, Purdue 29%, Virginia 22%, and Washington State picking up the rear there at 15% as far as covering as a dog this week, maybe even an outright win somewhere in there. So we do appreciate you guys participating, and of course, head over to Twitter at WagerTalk. Make sure you join us, follow us, subscribe here on YouTube if you haven't done so already. I'll come to you, Tony Mejia, to start here. Do you agree with the viewers who participated, number one, and which one of these games do you like the most?
I think Minnesota can win in Colorado. Let me watch Chris Outman-Bell play in that game, and that'll be huge for Tanner Morgan because that offense has looked stagnant without him. Even though they put up points against Ohio State, he was basically on the ground. Same thing last week. They really need to pass it a little bit to win at Colorado. I would pull the trigger on Virginia, but outside of Bronco Mendenhall being 2-0 in his tenure at Chapel Hill, he's 4-20 in every other road venue, including 0-4 last season. He tried to rectify that by training at the Washington football team facility this offseason, and they had him train at 8:00, which are where the 2 toughest road games are, the time of the 2 toughest road games that they have on their schedule this season. So instead of that, I'll stick with that game, but I'll ride the high-scoring trend. 38-31 2 years ago, 44-41 last season. I think we're going to get in the neighborhood of 68 to 75 points, which will top the number of 66.
All right, good stuff there. Don't forget, guys, Tony Mejia locked and loaded over at WagerTalk.com tonight, as well as all weekend long. So make sure you visit them. And Steve, talk to me, my friend. I know you got a great deal. You got the videos coming out this weekend. You got a great promotion. Talk to us and tell us which one of these games do you like a little bit more than the other?
Yeah, not sure if any of these 4 will make my best bet card for the weekend, but I will have my best bets, of course, for Saturday and Sunday. My personal plays for my clients at WagerTalk.com. Steve Merril. And as you mentioned, the videos, the college football top 25 video is up right now on WagerTalk TV. The 3 biggest national TV games, we didn't talk about them here. They're on WagerTalk TV. And then you mentioned, of course, the Fade the Public NFL video, which has done quite well the last couple of years. And of the 4 games we talked about today on Friday, I do think the most public dog, and as Dave said, that is always a huge red flag for me as well when a public is up on an underdog. And Virginia, as you said, actually, Joe, is a public dog in this game. So that gets me leaning towards North Carolina. My power ratings also favor the Tar Heels by 12, so we get some line value, which is often the case when the public is on an underdog, so not a surprise. And as Tony said, Mendenhall has not been a good road team with Virginia. Other than UNC. We'll see how that plays out here. But they're off back-to-back, somewhat misleading, high-scoring offensive games at home. William & Mary held with them in the first half, and they just got worn down as FCS teams often do. Illinois, an overrated team. Now they're taking a step up in class, and it's on the road, and North Carolina has revenge from an outright road favorite loss last year. They've already lost a conference game to Virginia Tech. They can't overlook this one. They won't overlook it. We get some line value here. We're going to fade that public dog in Virginia. I like North Carolina minus the 8. I think the line should be higher.
All right, good stuff there. And guys, once again, just to remind you, Dave Cokin, 12-1 on his 5% best bets in college football since 2019. His very first is up and ready to go right now, locked and loaded at WagerTalk.com. So make sure you visit Dave's page now at WagerTalk. And Dave, which one of these games do you like a little bit more than the other?
Well, rather than promote my own stuff, I want to promote the WagerTalk free odds page. It's complete. It's just that. It's completely free. And if you have interest in knowing what the ticket percentage breakdowns are at the various books, if you load up the live odds screen, you can check to see Circa, Westgate, South Point, DraftKings, Caesars, Bookmaker, Pinnacle, Bet Online, Heritage, and Consensus. And you can see what the ticket counts and the money breakdown are at those books and overall. It's pretty interesting information. If you're into that stuff, I mean, it's just it's tremendous information. And it's all completely free of charge at WagerTalk.com. So just go to WagerTalk.com and look for the live odds thing on the menu. And I would keep the screen up all day. It's the darn best feed, by the way. It's the best in the business.
Yep.
Notre Dame is 10 on my numbers, on my power ratings, line 7.5. So that offers the most value. If it gets to 7, I might take a shot with it. As of now, I think I'm set with the 4 games I played. But, there's no law against adding a late one. So I'll check again. I'll be monitoring that live odds screen to see if there's 7 becomes available again. It was briefly yesterday. And if it does, I might go ahead and take a small shot, like 2% or something like that with Notre Dame. Otherwise, I'm done. 4 colleges, 3 NFL, and let's see what happens.
That's right. And the 5% play locked and loaded now, guys. Visit Tony Mejia. Visit Steve Merril, and, of course, Dave Cokin ready to go this weekend. And if you happen to miss any of the shows this week, here's a quick recap of what we did on all of these shows, including Tuesday with Brian Leonard and Tony Mejia there. We had, of course, the best damn college football show on Wednesdays. You had Drew and Rob Vino and Ralph. And then you got us here on Friday. And, of course, Teddy Covers joined us yesterday with Boise State. And I do believe the for shits and giggles parlay of all shits and giggles parlays, if you put them all together, guys, every one of them,
lost.
and we've already lost, that's correct. But you're looking at, I don't know, plus 120,000 there, Steve Merril. I don't know what that is in Bitcoin. But there it is. There is your shits and giggles Hail Mary parlay from the entire week. Good luck to those of you. And is that a lot of Bitcoin, Steve? I don't even know.
It's not even 3 Bitcoin, so don't promote this like it's something special. It's not even 3 damn Bitcoin.
I love it. All right, guys, don't forget Tony Mejia, Steve Merril, and, of course, Dave Cokin, WagerTalk.com. We'll be back again on Tuesday. Get ready for week number 4 here on College Football Daily. In the meantime, best of luck with your plays, guys. Thanks for making us a part of it. Good luck this weekend. We'll talk to you again on Tuesday.
Do you want the convenience and success of a long-term football package without a 6-month commitment? WagerTalk has you covered with the perfect package to get you started. Take advantage of our rest of September NFL kickoff special, giving you both the National Football League and college football for the rest of September from the handicapper of your choice for only $1.99. Imagine every NFL and college football play for the rest of the month from your favorite handicapper, including any 5% release during your September access. That's right, college football and NFL for the rest of September for only $1.99. What a way to kick off the NFL season.